Welcome. This is the first actual official recording that we're dropping into today, and I am excited. Beside me today, I have the beautiful Hannah Davis, and we are dropping in live. And there's something I love about this and something I find within all of this that makes me so excited. Me and Hannah have been talking for a few months now, and we had planned to drop into a conversation. And she's based in New Zealand, and it just so happened she's here in Australia for 4 days.
Yes.
And I reached out yesterday, and said, hey, see that you're here in the country, in the Gold Coast. We planned this. I'd love to drop in person after you sent the original message. And here we are. So welcome to the Wyrd Way, Hannah.
Thank you.
Thank you. It is an absolute pleasure to have you here today.
It's so exciting.
It's exciting. It's a little bit strange, and that is the beauty of this.
Yeah, 100% agree. And we were just talking just before about how this online bubble that we kind of operate in and how beautiful it is to be able to reach out and really connect in person in these random instances is just, it's really cool.
It's for me one of the magic of the social media era is that we barely knew each other. We had a few connections online, and the next thing we know, we're in this room recording this podcast, creating some beautiful content, getting to have incredible conversations. We've already had a few, and I think I'll probably say this every time I get someone in here that I wished I was recording up until this point.
Yes. We said some really incredible things and didn't have it on record.
So I'm hoping we can find our way back there and discover the root of it all, and I trust in the magic that is unfolding today.
100%.
Now, one of the reasons that I'm really excited to have this call with you is even our engagement over the last day, I was really able to tell the type of woman that you are. So you arrived in Australia yesterday or the night before?
Yeah, Wednesday evening.
Yeah. It's now Friday afternoon, and you got here, you got sick.
I got so sick.
And I messaged you while you were still in your sick portal.
Yes.
And I said, hey, I was available today and I'd love to jump in and have this conversation. Yes. And you're like, hey, I'm quite sick. I'm not sure if I'm going to... You didn't even say I'm not sure. You said, yep, this is perfect for me. Let's do it. Yeah. I'm going to be there. I'm going to show up even if I'm at 50%. Yes. And that level of fortitude, that level of strength is something that when I see, I deeply admire. And I also know that it's been quite a journey to create that, because I don't believe it's just one day we wake up with that.
No.
And there has been this whole journey to get you to this point where it's like, hey, I'm here. I'm only here for 4 days. I'm quite sick. I've got all these things planned. And you know what? I'm going to do it regardless. And when I see that, I find that so incredible. And such a gift to give to this world. And I also know that it's taken quite a time to get to that.
Yes.
And so for yourself, I'm curious what it's taken to grow into the person that has such an inner strength where it's like, I'm not letting this stop me. I'm not letting this stop me from what I'm here to do.
Yeah, okay, I hear that. And it's, before I go into the before story, it's just that innate knowing that in life, if we want to get the most out of life and we really want to, dive fully in and take the opportunities, you have to say yes. And it's really quite incredible how much we hold ourselves back with procrastination, do I really have time? We never have time. Nobody has time. We create time.
Yes.
And by that very simple notion of just being like, yes, I'll do it. You then create all the space you need to do these incredible things that you will never regret doing. You'll never regret connecting, sharing. Like, these are beautiful human traits. So yeah, it was, I'm just really grateful. I'm really grateful that we could do this too. So thank you.
I love that piece. And something I've learned over and over again is when I get to a point and I'm like, I want to do this thing. And then I'm like, oh, it's kind of just sitting up there in the ether. Maybe I don't put a date on it or I don't commit to any action on it. It's like, that would be nice. And I fantasize about that. I never get it done. And then as soon as I put it into the physical, and this may look like putting a date to it or doing something like committing to someone else of how it was. You said yes. Yesterday you said yes. And to me, and that's a physical action where we commit to something outside of ourselves. And when I do that, when I see other people do that, I never know quite how it's going to happen. But it happens somehow. And for me, that is the magic.
It's when we put the procrastination down. It's when we just sit there beside us and go. And I always sort of say to people, why don't you try it? Try it for a week. Break it down. Don't make everything so huge. Try saying yes to things that you might normally say no to. And just see how it feels. See if it's really opening doors. See how that looks for you. And it might well be that you go, actually, no, this is too overwhelming. I don't like that. And you might want to take it back again. But it's just kind of having that curiosity of what else is out there? What actually really makes me feel good? What can I achieve if I say yes a bit more? It's very interesting.
I really find that when we come back to the energy of curiosity, of wonderment.
Be curious.
Yes, be curious in the world. We actually uncover so much. And like you're saying, in a world where it's so easy to become disconnected, to be programmed by others, when we come back to that curiosity of, what do I enjoy? Oh, I'm willing to try that. I'm willing to experience that. We then begin to trust ourselves, because then we can be like, oh, I tried that and that's a no for me. I tried that and that felt expansive. That felt freeing. That felt exciting, exhilarating.
Yeah.
And then we uncover so much from that point.
So much.
Mm.
An incredible amount. And if we're going, of course, into the story of like becoming and growing, I'm from a sort of well-to-do, I guess, British family. And I don't know if you know much about the British, but that terminology of stiff upper lip is so true. We are sort of taught in some way not to show too much emotion, not to be a problem. And I know this is actually true of society in many places now, so it's not just Britain, but that was a huge learning curve for me to go into different cultures and seeing how they really fully express themselves and being okay with, vulnerability and saying things to maybe even strangers, and seeing how it's perceived is just, it's huge. The growth continues because we really are taught that suppression is strength. Say nothing. Do nothing. Look strong. You'll be okay. No, you won't.
No, you won't.
You'll combust at some point. It's only a matter of time. So, yeah, that's definitely a fascinating journey.
And it sounds like that's been quite the journey for you in actually uncovering and learning how to express more, because at the moment I see you and I see who you are in this world, and I can tell that you are a very expressed individual who's like, hey, I'm here. Earlier we were having a conversation and one of the things was, when you learn to step into your truth more, when you step past who you were and become more of who you are, there can be a separation from people around you, because now you are in a way too much, which for some of us, for me, has been one of my biggest fears, that I'll be too much for other people. And the harsh reality when we do step into that at times, that can become true. And so in that journey for yourself where you've become more expressive, because I see you now and it definitely feels like that has been the case. And I can tell right now, if you're watching this on video, you will see some of these expressions and most definitely expressive. But I imagine there's been a lot of perhaps pain or hurt as you've allowed yourself, and then also beauty in allowing more of yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we talked about that. The the too much is something I think that comes up for a lot of people when we step into our expression. People often assume it's an act. So if you are quite high vibe, if you are like, wow, I really actually love to do this and I want to find out and I want to get to know people, and they're like, oh, it's a lot. It's a lot. And yeah, even in the last 2 years alone, through moving on this sort of trajectory where I'm stepping more and more into authenticity, vulnerability, and these are things that don't come naturally for me either. I was not taught how to be vulnerable. So having those hard conversations and being able to have boundaries and also being open and alive, people moved away.
Mm-hmm.
And it was awful. And I'm not just talking about people that you work with. I'm talking about friends of 6, 7, 8 years. Sort of being like, oh, I don't know. It's a bit triggering now. It's a bit annoying. It's a bit, I can't speak for them, obviously. But what you can register is the distancing that happens. And that's kind of your moment where you go, you step into complete trust of the fact that if you are you and you're coming from a place of kindness, you're not going out to hurt people, you're coming from a place of passion, of things that you love in the world, of curiosity, then I fully believe that your tribe will find you and you will find your tribe. And that magic has been happening for me over now the last couple of years, and what needs to move away will move away. And that's where your strength lies, because sometimes we have to be able to let things go so that we can open more doors. But that's hard.
It's very hard.
It's really hard.
One of the mantras that has stuck with me is, if something is meant for me, it won't leave me.
Yes.
And
Yes.
what I hear in that is the strength it takes to really choose oneself. And that can be one of the hardest things to do, because at times it does mean we do lose people. It does mean we step away from the circles that we live in, that we know, and we have to step into the unknown. And that can be the scariest thing.
Yeah, it's terrifying.
It's very terrifying. And I know for me that has been something which it's allowed me to grow, but it's also broke my heart, as it's like, oh, am I willing to give this back to the world because it doesn't align anymore? Am I willing to say no to something that is 99% it and just that 1% off?
Yeah.
Because they're the moments that it's the hardest, where it takes everything. And they're the moments that for me has made all the difference, when I've said, I'm not willing for 99%. I'm here for the 100% truth and authenticity of my life.
Yeah.
And they're the biggest decisions, where it's like, who am I? What's this? How strong am I? How committed am I to my path?
Yes. And the thing about that as well is you constantly grow and evolve. So who you are now might change again.
Yes.
And some people really are amazing and they can grow with you, and they do, and you all grow together, and sometimes you grow apart. And I don't know what it is about us humans that we really want to hang on. We really and I can only, I guess, speak for myself, but I really wanted to hang on to everything. I wanted to micromanage every situation so that it just worked out.
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way.
No, it doesn't, does it?
No, it doesn't work that way. And that surrender, when you reach that moment that I think you're talking about, where you surrender and go, but my truth is greater than, my path is greater than, my calling is greater than. As sort of cliche as that can sound, it fills you with so much more than any one person can give you, anything that you're hanging on to can give you. Because living your purpose is way beyond any external kind of influence, let's say.
And I find if we open that door to learn what our purpose is, what that thing is that calls to us in our dreams in the night when we're quiet, if we learn what that is, I've found I can't shut that down.
No.
And if I try and hide it from myself, it will kill me. It will take everything from me, because I know in the deepest part of myself, I'm out of alignment, I'm out of truth. And that's the hardest thing to admit, because for me, once we are on the path, it calls to us.
It calls to us. And it's what you just said, kind of bringing some clarity into that. When we use terminology like it will kill me, we don't physically mean, we're going to drop down dead, but we're talking about how things come out, suppression plays out in like addictions. As I know you went through depression, mental health is affected, disease that starts within the body. These are all the things that come up through not living that purpose and from trying to suppress it down. And that's definitely something I'm hugely passionate about. And I know you are too.
Yeah, it's a big pillar of my work, and what I want to see in this world is people living more connected to themselves. And I know this is a big part of what you do also. And from the outside looking in, people may not think that at the start when they see holistic nutritionist and the work you do, because it is very body focused. It's health, it's connection to self.
Yes.
And what some people might not realize is the fundamentals and how important this is to actually connect to our true self and what it takes to do that. And so I'm wondering if you could explain how your work plays out into connection to a person and their true self.
Yeah, that's a good one. Because I certainly know with having an online platform as well, we only see things at face value, so it's perceived in a certain way. And the way marketing and things works online, you try to show up in an online manner as authentically as you can, and you try to really bring that. But I think vanity can come into it. Let's all just be real. And, we see bodies and we want to look like that body. And we instantly go in our mind, okay, what can I or can't I eat? What do I need to work out? That's it. That's the place that most people go. And what I do within my work is I try to get to the nitty gritty of, okay, let's talk about, why are you here? Why are you here in the first place? What's brought you here? And why have you not reached where you want to be? This is the kind of, what ceiling have you set for yourself? Why has that ceiling come about? And these are the things that people don't talk about as much. But when you actually get to the nitty gritty of why somebody is where they are psychologically, it actually has very little, a lot of the time, to do with food and exercise. Those are kind of the cherries on the top. We want to find out why you haven't done it yourself. Why has it been too hard? Because we all know that there's plenty of information out there. And even though I believe that the exercise instruction I do and the food and so on is amazing, like it works, I know that there are many programs that work. So the point of difference is really being able to see, do you need to work out more, or do you actually need a nap? Are you so stressed out that your body has cortisol just like circulating relentlessly, in which case if you go for a 10K run, it's going to do the opposite of what you needed to do. We're keeping those levels raised. So it's taking a sort of holistic wellness viewpoint and looking really to the deep internals of why we are where we are. Why do we have that ceiling? Who do you have in your corner? Who's supporting you? Because you find most people, they just don't have any support.
No.
And if I can come in and be the cheerleader going, you've got this and you're doing freaking amazing. And even when it sucks, you've got this. Then you're opening doors.
Yes.
Then you're starting to get in, and then we're elevating, and we're elevating the consciousness. So therefore we can start elevating the physique and everything that goes with it. And that's, yeah.
I really loved what you're touching on there, because it is so much more than what people see on the outside. There is some deep internal work that needs to happen to create the shift.
Oh, yes.
And we were out there, and Carla mentioned, to change who we are, we need to change our identity.
Yes.
And I find this such a pivot in any type of work that is development of changing who we are, how we show up in the world. And a point you mentioned there is that before a person becomes that version of themselves they see, that they've dreamed, that they desire to be, if it's to have the body they want, is it to have the wealth, the abundance, whatever it is, there's often a period of time where between where they are now and that place, it can get quite murky. It can be like, what am I doing? This doesn't seem right. I have no idea. All my beliefs are crumbling. I have no idea who I am anymore. And it can be a big transition, because who they are is dying and who they are becoming is becoming born.
Yes.
And this stage can be intense. And
so uncomfortable.
And this for me is the part where it's like, hey, do you have support? Because if you're wading through the murky swamp by yourself and you're like, no, this is dark. I'm not going in here by myself. I'm not going to touch on this. I'm not going to go anywhere near this. To have the cheerleader who's like, you're going the right way. Just keep going. This is important. You need to go through this. That makes such a difference, because now you've got a light in the dark. Now you've got someone else putting up a signpost of being like, keep going this way. It's working. Trust me. And over time, we begin to see that that is true. You know, in our body, we might, after a few weeks, we're like, oh, I can see changes in my body now. It's starting to look a different way. I feel different. I maybe breathe better. I have more energy. And then it's like, oh, I can begin to trust this process myself. But until that point, we're just wading in the dark.
You're like a goldfish. You're kind of going in circles. And it's such a, we did talk about it, that getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. And there is a process before you reach the point where, as you say, you start to see the changes and you start to see the positive coming back towards you. There is a point that is a little bit murky and it's a little bit uncomfortable, and you question yourself. That's when all your doubts will come in. Am I doing the right thing? Should I just go back to what is safe? Should I just, and that's actually your moment of strength. That's your test. That's the discomfort you sit with, where you go, if I do what I've always done, I'm going to get what I've always got. And I'm looking for something different now, because it's not been working for me. So I'm going to have to push through this. And the only way through is through. And it's not pretty, and it's not something, it's not a point you reach and you're suddenly healed, fixed, and everything is fine. Life doesn't work that way. What we're doing is we're building the tools within ourselves so that when the next thing happens, which it will, because we're right in that roller coaster, you have all the tools in place to know how to get yourself through that without repeating. And you might go a step back, and that's okay. But you know that you're going to keep pushing forward. And that's it. It takes a while, but I've definitely reached a stage now where I have a deep, innate knowing that no matter what comes my way, and let me tell you, a lot of shit comes my way all the time. I seem to, I can be that slightly chaotic type that, can bring it in, but that's That's okay. That's part of the persona. It's, I know that I'll be okay. I know that I have the tools in place now. And I will never go to the depths of, you know, feeling as down as I once did or so on, because you have that foundation. And I'm sure you're sort of feeling the same. It's a really beautiful gift to give yourself, to actually battle through and learn. Like, learn, be curious about yourself. And then be curious about everyone else.
yes to this. Start with yourself.
Yeah.
And what I love so deeply about this is one of the reasons I first came to this work was I wanted to get to a point in my life where no longer did I have any problems. And I was like, oh, who do I need to be perfect? I wanted my life to be rainbows and sunshine. And the reality is that's not the case. It's never going to be the case. And I think people can look at, say, me or you, when we post online, we're quite like we know ourselves and we do a lot of the internal work, and people can look and be like, they've got it all figured out. No. We know how to navigate, but we still go through the darkness. And I think that's the difference for a lot of me, and something that was so important to actually see people who I looked up to, who I could see were on their path, and know that they have their own troubles at times. Yeah. And regardless of the depths we do go, there's got to be them ups and downs. There's got to be them moments where we question, where we might doubt. And that internal knowing, that faith, I call it faith and trust for me, is so important. To trust that I'll come out the other side, to have faith this is serving me, because I do believe that the universe is serving me to grow me into the person that I need to be here to deliver my gifts to this world. Yeah. And trust in that process. And that's hard.
It's the hardest thing. I could bring so much kind of humanness to this. I mean, I mess up. Vulnerability is still something I really struggle with. You know, having those hard conversations with people, whether that be friendships, relationships. I know, you know, a lot of my friends are so much better at it and they really don't overthink it. And I'll turn up to a conversation with all the right words because I've done all this work and I'm like, I'm ready. And I'll walk through the door and I'll go, I don't really like what you did. Okay, bye.
Yep.
And I'm just like, what are you doing, Hannah? This is embarrassing. You're like a 12-year-old girl all of a sudden. But that's okay. That's okay, because part of the learning is that you recognize that. And instead of running away from it, you can then correct it and go, oh, yeah, she was a bit of an idiot. Okay, so let's try that again.
And part of it is learning to be imperfect. Like for me, reading all the books, consuming all the knowledge, it can make me believe I've got to know it all, that I've got to get it perfect. And realizing that no, that's not the case. All I have to do is do my best in each moment. Yeah. And if I make a mistake, if I come out of integrity, to begin again, to see what I can do to own that. Yeah. Not necessarily fix it, because some things can't be fixed. And be willing to feel the uncomfortable emotions of, oh, I fucked up there. I made a mistake. I hurt someone. And I don't know if that can be healed. And I've had to sit with that. And that's uncomfortable.
It's horrible. It's really horrible.
It is. And yet, that for me is the work. To be willing to be with it all rather than just the good of the imperfection, the messiness of the human.
Yes. And the best thing about that is when you do understand this and you really start to understand yourself on this level, you then are not so triggered by other people because you start to understand the reasons we all do things. And, you know, that natural empathy comes in where we're like, that person that, I don't know, barged into me at the lights, probably just having a bad day. Like they're probably just in a hurry. It wasn't personal to you. And that's been a huge learning too is, okay, so now taking what you've learned with yourself and seeing that it's really not about you at all. Like most of what people do or say is not actually about you. It's very much what's going on in their head. So being able to let that go and just be comfortable with knowing that you're doing, you're doing right by you. And everything else is just kind of playing out. And it's not a personal attack. It's not a vendetta. Let's not create pictures in our mind. Let's just sit with what we know. And that is, I'm operating from my truth. I'm operating from a good place. What will be drawn to that will be drawn to that. And what won't like that like that.
No.
Like some people aren't going to like us.
No.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Yes, to think that there's maybe 8 billion people in this world right now, and not everyone is going to like us, and yet knowing logically that not everyone can like us, and it still be such a deep fear that most people have, because it's like they're not going to like me. I'm going to be abandoned. I'm going to be rejected. I'm going to have no one that loves me anymore. I'm going to die, which for me is the one that it leads to, because in tribal days, if we got left on a physical, on a level, if the tribe didn't like us when we were just in societies like that, they'd kick us out and would probably die, because then we would be alone. So when I think of that, it's like, oh, that's my biological response that isn't serving me anymore. But can I have compassion for that part of myself that believes if this person doesn't like me, I'm going to die?
Yeah. It's actually what it feels like, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It feels like a death. So that's a really interesting to, put that history to it. Because I don't think there's a human on the planet that isn't afraid of being abandoned. And for some of us, that might be abandoned, in a workplace, or it might not be just romantic relationships or friendships. It might be abandoned by the finances that we become so tied to. But that abandonment fear is real. We all want to be liked. I want to be liked. I still get really offended when people dislike me on Instagram. I'm like, why? I'm a really nice person.
Yeah. And that's the thing. We take that on personally so often. And it's like, oh, that's not about me. That's the lens, the world they're viewing it through. And they have their own set of beliefs, ideas and conditions that make them think that. And they're all valid. And in their world, I'm the enemy, or they don't like me. And it's like, oh, that's okay. It's not about me.
No.
It's never about me.
It's not about us at all. It's like, it's the most liberating thing to understand if you can put that into context of everything. If you are in a relationship and your partner comes stomping in, and maybe he doesn't, I'm going to say he because, I'm a girl, but he doesn't kiss you straight away or acknowledge that you're alive because he's in his head and something's gone down at work, we instantly are inclined to make that, what have I done? Why doesn't he like me? Why doesn't he? And we start over-analyzing these situations. And it's like, if you can just step back and go, it's not me. Something's going on. It's okay. It just makes life easier.
Yes, it makes it a lot easier. And it also takes time to learn that. Like each time.
It does.
It's not me. Oh, that has nothing to do with me. That's just a human, being a human, going through a process that could probably come from trauma, from conditioning, from just a stressful, overactive nervous system. Totally,
which we're really operating from. And I know that you do this with your work too, and that's why I've certainly started including things like regular breath work and stuff with clients, because being able to take yourself out of those anxious states is so hugely important in this day and age, because it's fast. Life moves fast, and we're not designed to actually move this fast.
No.
So we tend to be either sitting in a place of anxiety, overwhelm, or then we oppose it with everything's bad, and we get depressed. And then we might reach for something, right? We're going to be, drinks, drugs, you name it, cigarettes, something, food, and anything that just gets rid of these feelings that are just too much. So it really goes back to what we're saying, being able to sit with the discomfort. Catalyst.
It's big. It's big to be with that discomfort.
Yeah. I would love to know more about how you do that, actually. I think this is definitely more your area of expertise, for sure.
And it's something I'm still learning. There's times where I know I'll reach for the sugar. That's my guilty snack of like, it's been a big day. I have so much work to do right now. I want to keep going, and I reach for that fin. And for me, it's that continued practice to attune to myself and be like, do I actually need this?
Yeah.
What do I actually need? And for me to bring consciousness to it, of not shaming myself when I reach for that sugar, but being like, okay, does this serve me right now? Yeah. And maybe it does. Maybe I'm in the middle of something and I really desire to get it done. I need to get it done, whatever that could be. And it's like, cool, I'm conscious of the fact I'm consuming sugar right now. And I know that's not as healthy as it could be for my body, but I choose that in that moment because I know the effect of that, what that will, and it will allow me to sustain myself for this. And yes, there's healthier options and I can choose that. And more often than not now I do, but it's not always the case. And it's for me to bring that level of consciousness to it and be like, Dean, right now, I know you're not doing the best thing for your body, and that's okay.
Yes.
And this is something I learned recently when I went through my breakup, was that, there was moments where I was able to sit in my grief and be with the depth of my emotion and really go through that and wallow in all of that, cry my eyes out. And there was times where I was like, I am sick of this, and I'm in this world. I do this work every day. I meditate. I do all that, but to have a break from that and be like, I don't need to be with that right now, and I can be okay with that, because right now I just want to avoid this reality. I want to pretend none of it's real, and find love for myself within that, and to give ourselves that compassion of like, I know I'm going to get to my grief. I know I'm going to feel it. I know I'm going to go to the bottom of the well and feel all of that. But right now, the nicest thing I can do is put a movie on and eat sugar. Eat some ice cream.
Yep.
That's okay.
It's okay. Yeah. And even as a nutritionist, there's a lot of science to prove that nurturing, so like in winter we often crave like potatoes and heavier starchier foods that we've kind of demonized, but actually the body's asking for them because it's a level of comfort, and food is a huge comfort to our psyche. It really is. So instead of beating yourself up, as you say, if you're making the odd mistake but you're doing it consciously, you're coming back to your good habits. You're coming back to feeling the things, but you have made the decision and you've dropped all the guilt because it's a conscious decision. It's actually probably better for you than not doing it and battling through.
Yeah. For me, I speak to shame as the magic killer. And I think that applies with guilt as well, where if we go into a shame or a guilt place, it often spirals down and we can be like, I'm a terrible person. I'm so bad. Why am I doing this? And then I reach for more cake, ice cream, whatever it is, because now I've got to combat the effects of my shame and guilt by trying to fill the void it just created, because now I'm feeling even more guilt and shame, and continue that spiral. Yeah. But it's like, I can give myself this and use it as nourishment and consciously choose that. It can actually elevate us.
Yeah, massively. I did it just less than a week ago. I think I started drinking champagne and I'm not condoning this, but at 2:00 in the afternoon. And exactly what you said, I turned around to the people that were watching me looking slightly worried because they're like, what is she doing? And I was like, no, it's okay. I'm actually openly train wrecking. And they're like, what do you mean by that? I was like, I've chosen to do this because I actually just want to have fun today. I don't want to overthink it. I really love champagne and I'm going to do it. So I've got this bottle and I'm going to drink it and I'm going to dance and I'm going to dance badly and I'm, maybe not going to make the best food choices.
Yes.
But man, did I have a good time. And the next day, there was no guilt involved.
No.
I was like, oh, look at you being human. Like, cool. You don't have to be perfect. Like, and we need to stop striving for that, because if you strive for that, you're just constantly falling short.
Yes.
And where can you go from there? You're like a continual fuck up. Sorry, but
that is welcome here.
Yeah, because your standard is too high. And we all want to aim high, but we just need to bring a level of humanness where when these things come up or when we slip up, we can just give that compassion back to ourselves the same way we would a friend. If we saw a friend doing that, we would never turn around to them and go, oh, you idiot. Like, what are you doing? Like, no, you would just be like, okay, well, you're going to feel bad tomorrow, but, I'm here for it. It's cool.
Exactly.
Yeah, the compassion towards ourselves. We really do beat ourselves up more than we should.
And I find that definitely on this path is this level or standard that we think we have to hold us to. And that just comes from more conditions and beliefs around who we think we have to be to receive love. And that generally comes from an unhealthy place of, I need to be perfect to receive that.
Yeah.
But the truth is, no, we get to be messy sometimes. We get to party. We get to have fun. We get to celebrate. We get to be who we are. And sometimes that looks like having champagne at 2 in the afternoon. Sometimes it looks like waking up and, for me, eating pancakes. Sometimes it's like just allowing ourselves to be real and to live, because I don't want to be analysing everything every day.
Can you imagine living in a relationship like that?
I might have done it at times.
I think we all have, because as you say, we do feel that that's the catalyst to being liked, being wanted, being desired, to be more perfect. But it's actually not true, because the more you can show that side of yourself, then the more they can show that side of themselves. And that's where true intimacy is bred, where you're actually allowed to show your mess too. And same with your friendships, same with your work colleagues. If you can just have that little bit more curiosity, a little bit more openness to show who you really are, it's amazing what comes back towards you.
Yes, it is.
It really, really is. And this is something I did not believe. Even a couple of years ago, I thought differently about this. And the stuff that's happened since has just been phenomenal. And you open those doors open for you.
When we learn to be more of who we are, the world will reflect that. I see it as a mirror reflecting back to us. So if we're closed, if I'm holding back and being like, I'm not going to wear my scarf and look a little bit more magical today. That's something I do. I love to bring magic in. I do that through my clothes, because for me, that's an expression piece. It's like, oh, I get to be this weird character in another person's world. I get to be a weird character in my own, and I enjoy that. And then when I feel myself close off from that, or today I'm just a normal person walking down the street, because I do that. And like, it changes my reality. When I'm like this, I feel a little bit more magic. I feel a little bit more expressive, because I'm already the weird guy. I'm already the one who brings a little bit of attention to himself. And when we allow that, the world's like, oh, here's another weird character to enter your world, because now you're resonating. Now there's resonance between you. And like the vibratory law, only that which we resonate with will be in our field. So we can only attract that which we are like.
Yeah.
And so the more we allow ourselves and show, hey, this is who I am to the world, the more it will show back other people who are like, hey, this is who I am. You're kind of weird over there. Oh, I'm kind of weird. I'm maybe a little loud, expressive. I dance. I do weird things with my hands. Like, oh, here's another strange character to enter.
Yeah.
And how nourishing is that to see?
It's so cool. It's so cool, because really we're all a bit weird.
Yes.
Like, we all have our weird quirks and things, and we hide them, but why? Like, it's it's really quite incredible. And as you say about clothes, that's such an interesting one, because you really do kind of embody how we dress. I reckon it changes my personality.
So
if I
deeply.
dress like more boho, I'm like, yeah, kind of more hippie today.
Yes.
And I'll vibe with that. And then I might go out in the city and I'll dress, you know, quite formal. And then all of a sudden I'm just slightly more snobby. I'm like, how does this happen? But yeah, so you can see how you're expressing yourself starts to define you then. So yeah, that's really interesting.
And it's one of the things I recommend to people. If they want to change up how they feel about themselves really quickly, buy and wear something they never have before. And be like, oh, if you're a woman and you've never allowed yourself a really beautiful dress, go buy one and see how it feels. See how it feels to have something like that. If you're a man and you've never worn a suit, go wear a suit. Or if you've never allowed yourself to look like a hippie, see what it is. Feel the discomfort and allow that change to be like, oh, who am I in this?
Yeah, I feel like women do this all the time too. And this is something I would suggest to them. We all keep our best clothes in the closet and we never wear them because we're like, it's not the time. We're waiting for this perfect time to wear this outfit that looks amazing. And I always say to people, I'm like, put on the clothes.
Yes.
Wear them walking up we went walking today. We're in flowy skirts and boots and we went through the national park and everyone's, you know, in their active wear. And I'm like, I'm sick of wearing my activewear. I wear it all the time. I want to flow and be, and it felt great.
Yeah.
Like it was great. So yeah, put on the outfits. Get out the expensive jeans that you think you're not going to wear until you're in this perfect environment. Like do it, wear them.
Yes.
And feel amazing. Like love them. Wear them till they die and then replace them with something else that expresses you in a new way. It's really funny how even those little incremental details of fashion help you in some way sort of become who you want to be in those moments.
Let it be an expression of who we truly are. And let us show ourselves to the world, because for me, that's vulnerable. Like when we show ourselves, and that's why I think a lot of people don't, is it takes deep vulnerability to dress how we want, because then people get an insight into who we are. And that can be scary when we don't trust the world.
Yeah, it's true. Trust is a big one. What would you say about that? How do you think you learn to trust more?
Over time, I found people that allowed me to be a little bit weirder with, that allowed them parts of myself to be seen. So for me, I come from very much a spiritual background where, you know, I started going to events where people were wearing very hippie. I came from a small country town, so very almost bogan, if you know what that is. You know what that is. And, you know, basically the Australian cowboy. And so I came from that background, and I started going to these events and people were dressing different. I'm like, oh, I kind of like that. Oh, can I do that? Oh, I can do that. They're not rejecting me. I feel welcomed in this. And over time, finding my own sense of style that I felt worked for me, that I connected with, that I felt helped embody who I am, rather than going with the crowd. Because at the start, I was like, oh, now I'm one of you, so I'm going to be one of you. And there's a safety piece with being in that tribe. And then it was like, oh, actually, how do I want to dress? What feels true for me? And just that slow exploration. It doesn't have to happen overnight. But if you haven't gone through your clothes and gotten rid of everything you no longer like, start there. Start there.
Yeah, totally. Like chop your hair in the way you want to chop your hair. It's all these small incremental changes that start you on your journey of truth. And actually sitting with yourself for a while and going, what is true for me? And talking about like radical accountability. So everything that's happened to us to this point, or for us, however you want to word it, has happened because of things that we have brought in. Like energy that we've put out and it's drawn it back. It's happened. We have to be able to take accountability for our part in everything so far. So that victim mindset of being like, oh, my life's so bad because, you know, it's okay to be like, actually, my life is really bad right now. That's not a problem. The problem is when we get stuck in thinking that it is bad because you were delivered a bad hand. And I don't believe in people being necessarily delivered a bad hand. I think it's all about how we perceive things and how we deal with them. And nobody, I mean, you do get those people, God, those annoying people that just literally seem to walk through life and it's like gold just lands on them. And we'll take those out of the equation because I don't know what they've done in past lives like to deserve it, but maybe something.
And maybe it's only from that on the outside and we never know the inside as well.
Exactly that. We never know the inside. But generally, most people have been bashed around a bit. But for us to be able to go, okay, what part did I play in that? Why? And did I deal with it well? How could I have dealt with it better? This is kind of how you really start to get to know yourself to then be able to move forward and do things differently. Because if we can't be accountable for what is and what was, then we can't move into a better version of ourselves in the future. You're just going to stay here. So that's huge. Like, I just call it owning your shit. And I say that to my clients. I'm like, you know, they'll go, oh, I feel fat. And I'll go, okay, why are you fat? And I know that's a term that people don't like to use, but it's just getting really real. Like, why? What have you done that's got you here? Let's be like, what are you doing? And when you really start to bring that truth out of them, they've already got all the answers. Like, they don't actually need me. I'm the voice that's pulling it out of them. I'm that energy that's giving them a safe space and permission and then cheerleading. But most people have the answers.
And when I'm hearing you, I can almost hear people being like, oh, Hannah, you don't understand. You don't know what I'm going through. You don't know what I've been through. You know, I've got this going on. This has happened to me, all of this. And I hear this in my own world as well. And some people may not realize your own journey into this as well. And like I see you and you're showing up here. And I also feel how deeply you embody this because I know we've spoken briefly, but it hasn't always been that easy. And there has been some big moments of initiation for you where I'm sure it challenged you beyond anything you've ever known before. And we spoke to one of them briefly. There was an incident with a horse, and I'm sure that moment was something that challenged you in all of this and really had you asking a lot of these questions.
Yeah, massively. So just to kind of share that story as quickly as I can, it was, I was just about to turn 18. So as a teenage girl, you know how it is. And a lot of my identity was being quite successful in the equestrian field. That's how I got through bullying in school. That's how I got through so many things. I just threw myself into this thing that I was good at. And I did love it. But my horse, sorry guys if I'm sniffling my way through this. My horse hit a fence. So I was at a 3-day event and it hit its front legs on a solid log and flipped, if you can imagine the horse flipping. And I obviously fell and then the horse just came down on top of me. And I shattered my right femur, my rib cage, my jaw, my nose. I was completely flattened and I really knew it wasn't good. Like, you have that moment, I knew I was alive, but it wasn't good. That's kind of, and that was huge. That was huge in mental strength. Doctors, medical people setting ceilings for you very quickly. You will not do this. You will not run again. You will have arthritis by this age. You know, so many stories that you got told, and I can't remember exactly at what stage it was, but I do remember lying there sort of 2 months later, still in a bed, and I was like, this is not my story. this cannot be my story. Like if I'm not dead, which I'm not, then I've got more to prove.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm here for a reason, and maybe this is my reason. And that's sort of what started me on this. I did a lot of my studies from bed, unable to walk. And I started first on the mind. How can I get myself in a mental space to heal better, to heal stronger, to believe that I can? Because I really battled with that. I was a very vulnerable age. And when I started to get through that, it was the small steps. And, you know, to fast track that after nutrition and so on, I went on to study because I became so fascinated with how the body heals. I was just like, whoa, this is a miracle. Like, I'm doing these things they told me I wouldn't do. This is so cool. Then, yeah, what is it? Like 20 years later, oh my God, I'm so old. Like 20 years later, 2 kids, and I have 0 issues, like 0. I don't even have an ache or a pain or something that's slightly weird. And I'm like, whoa, that's incredible. And that's the fuel for me to say to people, okay, this is the story you've been told.
Yeah.
What's the story you want to hear? Because the person that knows your body best, newsflash, is you. So we almost need to go through a period where we just, I'm not saying don't take people's advice, because I think advice is beautiful, and obviously there's experts in fields and it serves a purpose. But do not let someone set your ceiling. That is for you. That is for you. And if you can be strong enough to make the decision that that is not my story, I fully believe that your body will follow suit. I'm not an exception to a rule. I'm simply someone that chose not to let that be my story. And that is something that drives me hugely with people. I fully believe, I think you can heal anything. And I think your body can heal anything. I really strongly believe that. Like, I don't know how much conviction I'm giving this, but I'm like, I have never seen a person that wasn't able to get through something if they really wanted it. So yeah, it's a huge passion in what I do and within the program too. For example, mums that have had children. I mainly focus on mums that have had children, and we always think, you know, after kids, my core will be ruined, my tummy will be ruined. And this isn't just vanity. This is how we feel about ourselves. And your core is so important. Yeah. We lose our core strength. It's a knock-on effect later on in life, and you know this. So it's about, first just changing those stories. You're having a baby. It's the most natural thing in the world. But yeah, you can fix it. Anything that's done, you can fix. You really can. And it just goes back to that belief. So yeah, I think sometimes I wish people would occasionally go through even harder things.
Yes.
Because they say unless you hit rock bottom, you never truly rise. And I don't know if you always have to hit rock bottom, but you certainly have to have a moment where the pain is enough that you need to change.
Yes.
You want to change. And whether that be injury or mental health or whatever, you really need to want it.
Definitely. And I know for me that happened when I got to a point and it was like, you can either choose to die or live. And that's the choice at times.
Yeah.
And to get with that reality of what do I choose from here, and to know the strength of what it takes to go beyond that, and for you to have everyone tell you otherwise, and then be like, no, I'm going to choose a new story, and something that most people would consider to be an accident that should never have happened, or something that was so terrible, and it was. But then use that as one of your greatest strengths now. And I see this in so much, and that often the garden of our wounds grows our gifts. And I believe that was Trevor Boehm who said that. And it takes incredible courage to go beyond what people tell us.
Yeah.
To be willing to say, hey, this isn't my story. I'm here for more. I want more. And I know deep down in some part of me, and this is where we have to tap deep, because everything in our story might be telling us elsewhere. You've never done it before. No one's ever done it. No one's in your family have done it. The people around you saying, what, you're crazy. That's not going to work. Who do you think you are? Do you think you're someone special? Whatever it is, whatever anyone's telling us at that moment, and realize there's something more, and believe that, and trust that deep part of ourselves that knows, because we fucking know.
No.
We know.
Yeah. Yeah, we know. It's every time you reach for that glass of wine at 5 p.m. to kind of numb out the existence that is your life, and I know because I've been there.
Yeah.
You realize that that's actually your body screaming.
Yeah.
That's your mind screaming that you need something different. And if we listen to our body, if we listen to it when it's whispering, when you feel a bit achy, you know, you're getting out of bed each day and you just feel a little bit achy, and you're like, oh, it's normal because everyone's achy at this age, right? That's the first whisper.
Yeah.
And then what it starts to happen is we wait and we wait and we wait until some big catalyst forces us to do something. And if we can just learn to tune into those whispers, then the little incremental changes are actually quite easy.
Yeah.
But yeah, listening.
It's one of the most important skills. The saying I've often heard is first the feather, then the brick, and then the bus.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
And I know in my life that's been the case. Oh, this isn't quite right. I know I've seen it in my business when I've been pushing myself beyond belief, and I'm like trying to force it so hard, and my body's given out, my nervous system's shut down, and it's like something's not right, and I'm like, no, I just keep going.
Yeah.
And I suppress that part of myself, and it's like, no, we need to slow. And that's when we learn, because there's something guiding us. That intuition that you speak of is always there.
Yeah. Yeah, intuition is huge. And this is from a girl, like, I still call myself a girl, which might be problematic. I think I feel much younger than I am.
Girl is beautiful. I'm
going to be a girl. I mean, we've all got that inner child inside us anyway,
yes,
so
do.
I'm talking to her. But I always thought words like that were quite triggering to me. I saw them as a bit wishy-washy.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh God, so cliche. Yeah. Oh my God, incense. Yeah. Yeah. All the silly little things, and I had so much judgment towards them. And now I do everything. Like, so there's not one thing, there's not one world I live in, and I know we touched on this. I live in all the worlds. And I love to take aspects and be curious about everything and just mix it up somewhere in the middle and have like this crazy existence, which I can honestly say I actually really love.
Yes.
And it's those pinch me moments where you're like, I really like my life. Like, I'm really living my truth. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And that will go full circle, and you'll get, slapped in the face again at some stage, and something will happen, but you're still going, no, this is the right path. This is the right journey. And yeah, I think if there's anything we take from this, it's most definitely that.
It most definitely is. And it's one thing I've found where there's so often signposts along the way. And I think we touched on this before we jumped on, was the need to know, or the want to know what's on the other side. And this can be the biggest thing for a lot of people. And often when we start on this journey, there is no knowing. There is no, I know what's on the other side of this. I know what I'm going to look like when I become fit. I know what I'm going to look like when I'm connected to myself. I know what I'm going to be doing in 10 years. We want to know that. But when I reflect on my life, 5 years ago, I would have never thought I'm sitting here having this conversation. A year ago, maybe.
Yeah.
I've been saying I'm going to start a podcast for at least 3 years now.
Yeah.
So it was a long time coming, but I never knew how it was going to look. And so I'm curious, when you're teaching people, when you're supporting people, how do you get them to begin to trust the process?
That's a good question. I don't think people do trust the process initially. They don't, because I am a stranger and they are putting a huge amount of trust in me, taking it on, but there's always a level, there's always like that little person that sits on everyone's shoulder going, can she really deliver? Can she? And I think the journey starts off being more about me and what I can offer them. And the moment of trust I see in people is when we turn that around and they suddenly realize that, oh, wow, this is actually less, again, about her and more about what I'm doing for me, how I'm changing me. And it goes back to trusting yourself. They see the very first, it might be losing a kilo. It might be feeling more energetic because their food has changed. It might be their tummy just feeling more comfortable. And that's when that little incremental trust comes in and they're like, oh, wow, I'm doing it. I'm doing it. And then it builds. But it's definitely, maybe I used to always be the person that was like, trust until proven otherwise. But what I'm realizing is it doesn't actually work that way. We generally, within ourselves, we build trust just like we do in other people. So it's slowly built. And it's built when you make that first mistake or you take that first step back, but you realize that you can trust yourself enough to get back on that path. And that's the point of difference. And then it just slowly builds. And it's a really beautiful thing to see when you can see people start to trust themselves and start to know, raise their hands and be like, I messed up, but I'm totally back on it and I'm good. And I'm like, yeah, you are. Yeah, you are, because you could own that so openly and you know exactly what you're doing. And just having that person in your corner, I mean, I'm not speaking like you don't need me at all, because we do need people that have expertise in different areas. It's a beautiful thing, these gifts that we can share. But I honestly believe my clients teach me more than I teach them sometimes. Just watching, all the different stories of how people have come to this and then watching them grow. I'm just like, that's really cool. Yeah. It's magic, and that's how I know that's the fuel. That's why I love what I do, because it's helping. And we all actually want to be of service.
We do.
And we love to serve others. Well, most of the time.
Until that moment where we overgive.
Until that moment where we don't.
Yes. And I feel like that was such a beautiful full circle moment where we come back to what it takes to build fortitude, what it takes to build anything. And this is an incremental process where we begin one step at a time. And when we take that step back, we jump back on. We say yes again. We be willing to take another step, even when it's scary, even when it's like, I think there's a cliff in front of me, but I know I need to get to the other side. And there can be big moments where it's like that, where it's like, oh, I'm staring into the abyss right now. But trust ourselves in the moments that the path we have walked has led us there to that point for a reason.
Yeah.
And to have that trust that the next step is going to be the one we need to continue, to take us where we need to go, to become who we're meant to be, to live the life that is meant for us.
Yeah, and I do have to just, coming from the wellness angle, nutrition and fitness, I do have to say I really notice a difference in we do have to look after our bodies. And this is something that people don't realize. You know, we talk about this journey of truth and this journey of, you know, getting to know yourself, but part of that is actually also looking after yourself. And that's huge. You can't just abuse your body essentially and then go, but it's okay because I accept it. That's not how it works. And I just definitely want to clarify that for anyone listening. It's like part of it is treating your body with love. And that is doing all the good things. That's, you know, doing the movement. It's putting in the good stuff. It doesn't have to be all the time, but it has to be the majority of the time. It has to be your foundation because it's your home.
It's where we live.
It's where we live. That's the only thing you actually can't change that much.
No.
Like we can move house, or you can sell your house, you can buy a new house, but you're stuck with you. So you decide what you're made up of. And that's, you know, both in terms of what you're made of, you know, muscular, what you're made of nutritionally, but also what you're made of mentally. It's the whole pyramid.
The whole body, the whole being.
Yeah, the whole being. And that connection that like we are one, I used to think that was a ridiculous comment too. And then seeing me sitting here now to this random person, you know, that I didn't even know not very long ago, and being able to connect on such a vulnerable level of these sort of open communication just shows you like you're bringing all that in.
Yeah. And it shows like where we're at, and you know, we've had less than a handful of conversations and we've conversed for I don't know how long right now. And I feel like we're heading towards the end, but to be able to just connect, show up to a friend's house, drop in a podcast and be like, let's share with each other. And some of it's vulnerable, some of it's real. Some people may never have a conversation as real as this.
Yeah.
And to that feel like one of the most natural things shows me the level of interconnectedness that is within this world and within our worlds and who we are as people.
Yeah. I hear that. I really, really appreciate it. I really do. As I said, vulnerability has not always been easy for me. So even doing things like this is entering that vulnerability all over again and kind of testing your own self and then going, no, it feels better. It's actually okay now.
Yeah.
And that's growth. So really important for people to realize that you'll keep having these moments where you're like, wow, I didn't think I could do this, but I did. I'm awesome. And just these beautiful things, and also being able to say that you're awesome.
Yeah.
Like
own it.
Own it. Yeah.
If you're listening, tell yourself you're awesome right now.
Totally.
Please.
Give yourself a pat on the back. Don't wait for someone else to do it. Do it for yourself and be like, fuck yes, I'm cool.
I deserve this. I deserve to know I'm fucking incredible.
Yeah. 100%. And trust that other people think you are too.
Yes, that is an important part. Oh, Hannah, this has been such a pleasure. And before we wrap up, is there anything you want to share or any last piece of golden wisdom that wants to come through?
No, I don't think so. I honestly, I think I'm going to recite that saying one more time, just with a bit more emphasis. If you do what you've always done, you're going to get what you've always got. And I just want to leave people thinking about that, because it rounds up what we talked about nicely. Where do you want to go? Why are you back there? You know, it's all just that accountability. So have a think about it.
I love that. That feels like the perfect place to end this.
Yeah.
Hannah, if people wanted to find you, where can they find you, connect with you, learn more about you?
Yeah, so mostly Instagram for me, and it is simple, sustainable, sexy. And yeah, my full name, Hannah Whittington Davis. So definitely pop on, connect. I would love to converse. I've always got time for people. I'm really never too busy. So even if it takes me a day or two, I will see your message and I will reply. So yeah.
And I'll drop all that information in the show notes, so you'll be able to find that all below this. Hannah, it has been such a pleasure. If anyone wants to find me, you can connect with me at the Dean Bentley on Instagram, and I'm very much the same. Drop into my space, ask questions, engage, let me know what you thought, share this, and I'd love to hear what you got from out of this.
Yeah.
So much love.
So much love. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.